see, this is not how we wanted to meet, but we're here and we need you to come up with us. Come up with us as we unite and persevere through unprecedented challenges. Come up with us as we unite and progress to heights thought unobtainable in these unpredictably trying times. Come up with us as we unite and propel one another forward with the unmitigated determination and drive of Elizabeth Evelyn Wright. Come up with us as we begin a college semester like none that has ever existed, and together we move up. Welcome to Voorhees College, Fall 2020.
And good morning, my brothers and my sisters. Welcome to the Lyceum Series of the Voorhees College, one of God's finest HBCUs located in Denmark, South Carolina. I'm Dr. Herman Skip Mason Jr., Director of Library Services, and I am honored to chair the Lyceum Committee. The Lyceum Committee works each year to bring wonderful speakers and presenters to the Voorhees family, our students, faculty, and staff, so that our students might be exposed to some of the great authors and great thinkers of this time. And today we are tremendously blessed to have one that we call a son of Voorhees and a son of Denmark, South Carolina, Bakari Sellers. And so very shortly, we'll bring him up. But first, we want to begin, as we always do, with invocation. And I now invite the Reverend Yvonne Singleton to come and to share in our invocation this morning. Good morning, Reverend Singleton.
Good morning. Let us pray. Oh God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, a shelter from the stormy blast and our eternal home. We come, God, just to say thank you for another day. We thank you for waking us up and giving us life, health, and strength, that we might come together as workers and friends and family at Voorhees College. And we pray now, God, as we go forth in this meeting this morning, dear God, that you will be in the midst. We pray for the one who has come to share with us this day, and may his words be seasoned that it might touch our hearts and our souls and give us food for righteous thought. We know that God, his book is on our vanishing country, and we are in a vanishing state, but we know that you are God, and beside you there is no other. And so we pray now, God, your blessings upon us all. And as we look forward to our voting and the outcome of that vote, dear God, we know that you will be there in the midst, working it all out to our good. Be with us. Bless Voorhees College. Bless our president. Bless all concerned. In the name of Jesus, our Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen. And thank you so much, Reverend Singleton. Today, we are very fortunate to have one of the great minds of our times right now. But, you know, I started thinking about how do I introduce Bakari. I met him when he was a student at Morehouse College, and he was the Student Government Association president. He was large and in charge then, as he is large and in charge now. But I decided that instead of my presenting him, that I would share this clip. I think will help you to see the one that you see often on CNN and other stations. This great man who shall be our Lyceum series. Why don't you check this out?
I love you too, South Carolina. Tonight I join you, just a kid from Denmark, South Carolina, where we have 3 stoplights and a blinking light, to stand here at this crossroad in our nation's history as proof that anything is possible. I join you tonight born out of struggle, a product of the civil rights movement, the son of Gwendolyn Sellers and Cleveland Sellers, who missed the birth of his oldest child, my sister, because he was in prison for fighting for what he believed in. They taught me not only the words of Frederick Douglass, without struggle, there is no progress, but also the words of our state motto, Dum Spiro, Spero, while I breathe, I hope. I am a product of their struggle. I am a product of that hope. And I'm not the only one. The truth is, every single one of us is a product of struggle. Our lives were made possible through struggle and hope. And now, Democrats, more than ever, we must continue to embrace our history, recognizing that the party of Barack Obama was first the party of Fannie Lou Hamer and the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party.
Voorhees family, what a joy it is to present one of our own, attorney, activist, analyst, and now author, Bakari Sellers. My brother, my brother, my brother. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. And thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you all. I was sitting back watching that speech. I honestly have never watched it. So
really?
Yeah. So it's an honor to actually watch those words. That was an awesome experience to speak on that stage the same night that Hillary Clinton actually took the nomination, becoming the first woman to lead a major party ticket, and being able to represent Denmark that night in prime time on that stage was an awesome feeling. So thank you for playing that.
I can only imagine. And those of us who know you and those who've known you longer, certainly we glean with joy to see you standing. And I know your Morehouse brothers just celebrated you, as Morehouse brothers do when one of their own rises, as you have risen. But now you are an author, and you've written a most fascinating book, My Vanishing Country, a memoir. And we've invited you here partly to tell us a little bit about your book. You know, we want to, talk to you about the things that you're doing. I mean, you have the pulse of what's going on in the world, but just talk to us for a while about your book. What led you to write the book at this time? And then we'll come back and have some additional dialogue as we share. But we're so delighted to have you, and we look forward to your sharing, Bakari.
Well, first, let me just give honor to Reverend Sellers, who is one of my heroes. I don't know if she's still listening or she is going to save some more souls, but I love Reverend Singleton with all my heart. She is somebody who's poured so much into me that I would not be nearly or have any semblance of success without the prayers that she says that lift me up. So if anybody is needing anything, any sustenance during this time of uncertainty, go and spend some time with Reverend Singleton. She either gonna pray for you or make you smile or do a combination of both. And so I'm just grateful for you. So thank you so much, Reverend Singleton.
Thank you.
To Dr. Evans, I can honestly say that you are my second favorite president of Voorhees College. And I just hope you take that as an honor. But you have taken this college and grown it. And even more importantly, you are sustaining it during a time when many HBCUs are struggling. So I look forward to not what you have done or what you are doing. I look forward to what you will do when you have the ground up under us again. So just keep putting your shoulder to the wheel, and we all will be there for you. Skip Mason, I don't know if people know that we've known each other for, man, it's almost 20 years now. I went to Morehouse at the age of 16 years old from Denmark. I was in Atlanta, Georgia at 16 from the big city of Denmark. And, you've always been there and always been a leader. And you've always taught us that being a man meant that you were in touch with your emotions. Being a man meant that you didn't subscribe to any of the notions that are archaic, that are set out through toxic masculinity or anything else. But being a man means standing up for your community, loving your neighbors, loving God, putting him first, and doing absolutely everything you can to help humanity. So thank you for those life lessons that you've taught me, pouring into so many others. There's so many people at Voorhees that I can thank. I used to break into Leonard E. Dawson. We would either break into the Voorhees gym or the elementary school gym across the street, or Denmark Tech's gym every Saturday and Sunday. Me and Boo and Chico and Keem and Quan and Bruiser and Tonio Whetstone and Skeet, all of us from Denmark would come, and on Sundays we would have Howard and Hank, and they would come join us for basketball games, and we would sneak into the gym. I literally grew up on that campus when Kelvin Myers was grilling out at Mr. Myers' store, or Big Sam would have his grill open, and homecoming at Voorhees with the Josie and Lucy Laney bands that used to come to town, and running up and down the street and sitting on the stage when I had the opportunity to. Voorhees is a part of me, Upward Bound and Trio programs. I never was in Upward Bound or Trio, but you couldn't tell me because I was down there all the time. And so when we talk about My Vanishing Country, which is my truth, when we talk about My Vanishing Country, which is the story that I wrote about where I'm from, my home, that picture is me at 6 years old. That picture was taken in 1991. I am on my way to play basketball. And I think we were actually playing our basketball games that year in the Voorhees College gym, maybe. That picture was taken in Sado. That picture was taken at 633 Frederick Street. If you go by it right now, you'll still see that same stoop right there by the big pecan tree. And that picture is filled with so much innocence and so much hope. The picture is filled with so much promise. That picture is one of a dreamer. And that's where I'll start this story today. I wrote My Vanishing Country, and I got turned down for it over 30 times. And I want everyone listening to that, if you don't remember anything else, remember that, be prepared for every opportunity, but also understand that many times challenges will come your way. No one wanted to buy this book. No publishing house wanted to give me an opportunity. And then there was a young lady named Tracy Sherrod, who is the lone Black female head of a publishing house. She called me after I sent my proposal in and said she wanted to meet and talk to me. And so I went in, and I was talking about writing this political book, being Black from the South in the age of Trump. And she said, "Bakari, don't nobody want to hear that from you." So she asked me my story, and I told it to her. And she said, you got to write this. You got to write this memoir. And I said, I'm 30 some odd years old. What am I doing writing a memoir? She said, people need to hear this story. And so I started by writing about Denmark. I started about writing about I wanted people to be able to smell and touch and taste and see and hear what Denmark was and is. You know how when you go by on a Wednesday or Thursday downtown and you can smell the aromas of the Weebake, or you're down by Tootin's and you can tell when that chicken is piping hot. I wanted people to be able to understand what the Dogwood Festival was and how we used to have the Dane Theater and Mr. Robinson's record store downtown, how it was such a vibrant downtown with small businesses. We would pull over many times after school and go into Pools 5 and Dime and get one of those ices and slushies. I would get the cherry and Coke mixed. Talking about how the community was flourishing, how I remember Mr. Odom, he was always one of the people who I recall who was working at the Savannah River site. We didn't know anything about the Savannah River site. We just called it the bomb factory. I remember during the summer, I did it one summer. I only did it one summer. You go out there and you work and you pick watermelons or cantaloupe. I was a skinny boy. I wasn't built for that, but you would get $250 a week for the cantaloupe and $350 for the watermelon. I think it was Quan Wright that got me out there doing that, telling me this was a good idea to make some extra money. I talked about the fact that how, although Denmark was a poor town in terms of money, we didn't know what we didn't have. And the Denmark Recreation Center, which is run down and dilapidated today, was a place where we had so many dreams. I talked about how we used to go jump ditches behind the recreation center, and we ran youth football and basketball and soccer and all those things, and baseball. We even had youth baseball for a period of time. And so I talked about that upbringing and what it meant, the history and the culture, how Denmark was founded, and how even in my head, I used to always come up with this creative story that maybe Denmark was named after Denmark Vesey, not some old rich baron, because I just knew we had that fighting spirit. And I wanted people to know that for far too long, when people talk about rural, they mean white. But I knew a bunch of Black folk that are rural, a bunch of Black folk that are country, and a bunch of people that are prideful, just as much pride as anyone else. But we worked hard, we worked with our hands, and that was our upbringing. Very educated town. I used to go to St. Philip's Church, and everybody used to go to St. Philip's. We had the mayor would go, and Miss Grant, who used to teach my daddy math, Mr. and Miss Hodge. We always had a few professors from the school. Dr. White used to go there, and we would just have a bunch of people who were influential in the city would go to St. Philip's with us. And so I wrote that, and I wanted it to be visual. And then I told the story about my brother, not Cleveland Lumumba Sellers III, but my brother Pop, who many people know. You see, Pop was from Sugar Hill. He was from the other side of town. And Pop lost his father when he was really young. Pop's father was actually bringing him his first computer. And Pop actually went to the scene and saw his dad mauled and mangled in this car when he died. And we met Pop one summer at the Denmark Recreation Center. My sister did, and brought him home, and he just stayed. Pop was just literally my brother. Through all the ups and downs and the mistakes made, if Pop was watching today, I would tell Pop that he is a success and that I get a lot of my strength from him. Pop graduated from college when people told him he couldn't. He started getting his master's degree from Claflin University, but then the real world hit. He had children, and Pop just called me the other day. He was let off during this quarantine period, during this coronavirus period. But he called me the other day to tell me that he just got a job and he was working hard. And he wanted my twins, who you hear in the background, he wanted their sizes because he said I'd been looking out for him. He wanted to send them some, when he got his check, he was going to send them some clothes. You know, that's family. That's Denmark. That's what it means. That's what it means to be a product of the proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. And so I wanted to write those stories. I talked about going to my first Orangeburg massacre ceremony, not really recognizing that my dad was a hero. It's kind of awkward when you grow up with heroes in your kitchen. I talked about how February 8th, 1968 was the most important day of my life, and how my father was shot along with 28 others, and 3 were killed: Henry Smith, Samuel Hammond, and Delano Middleton, in what's called the Orangeburg Massacre. And I talked about how the blood of my family literally runs through the soil of this great state, and how that formulated, and his involvement in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee formulated my being and my perspective. And so I went through my matriculation, going to Felton Laboratory School and going to Orangeburg Wilkinson, going off to college. And to all my students there, you don't have to wait till you graduate in order to be an activist or a politician by any stretch. In fact, you can get active right there on your campus. There are so many gaps to stand in while in the community that you can be a leader, not just at Voorhees, but you can be a leader throughout the larger Denmark and Bamberg County community. And then I remember graduating. I was 20 years old. It was the summer of 2005. I had just graduated from Morehouse College. And I came downstairs. We were at the house 4231 Voorhees Road. And in there we have a cook island, and we have a wet bar. And I was standing in between a cook island and wet bar. And my mama was fixing spaghetti and my dad was reading the newspaper. And I said, Mom, Dad, I'm going to run for the South Carolina State House of Representatives. And my mom said she'd vote for me. And my dad said he'd think about it. I was running against Thomas Rhode, who was 82 years old and had been in office for 26 years, which was longer than I had been born. And before he was in the State House, he was chair of county council. Before he was chair of county council, he was a mailman. Before he was a mailman, he delivered the milk. So he knew absolutely everybody. And we went out and we knocked on 2,600 doors. See, my district at the time was all of Bamberg, Cope, Cordova, Springfield, and Norway, and Orangeburg County, and just a little slither of Barnwell County. And we knocked on over 2,600 doors, went to over 55 churches. And on June 13, 2006, I became the youngest Black elected official in the United States and the youngest state legislator in the history of South Carolina. And that's pretty cool when you sit back and think about it, I guess. I really don't think about stuff like that. But when you sit back and think about the fact that I used to jump ditches at the Denmark Recreation Center and break into the Voorhees College gym and then became the youngest Black elected official in the country, that's a hell of a story. And what people don't recall sometimes is back in 2005, 2006, something was happening in our world. Everybody and their mama was running for president of the United States. And that's back when we had Dennis Kucinich and Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and John Edwards and Bill Richardson and Chris Dodd. And I narrowed my choices down to John Edwards and Barack Obama. And finally, I'm on my way to constitutional law class in Columbia. I'm the only legislator with a book bag on. And, I would walk back and forth from the State House to law school. And I remember that my phone rang and it was a private number. And for all the students watching, you just know that if somebody calls you from a private number, it's one of two people. It's either somebody important calling you or it's a student loan company calling to get their money back. This time it was somebody important. It was Barack Obama. And I had spoken to him many times before, but he said, now is the time. I want you to endorse me to be president of the United States. And I said, I'll do so. I'll do so under two conditions. One is that my mom works on the campaign. And two, you have to come to my district. He said, done and done. And so I campaigned all across the country. I don't know if y'all remember this, but in Mass Hall, I brought Michelle Obama. She was in Massachusetts Hall during that campaign cycle. And finally, I got a phone call that said, Barack Obama's going to come to your district. Where do you want to put him? Ran into a slight problem because we didn't really have no place to put Barack Obama. And so we decided to put him in SHM, just because for the sheer size of the venue. And that day, if you think about it, I pulled up to Smith Hammond and Middleton Auditorium. It was January of 2008. It was pure pandemonium. People were everywhere. I walk into the men's basketball locker room, and sitting down is Chris Tucker and Kerry Washington. And then my friend Rick Wade comes in and says, I'm going to go get Usher. And so it's me, Usher, Chris Tucker, and Kerry Washington, and we're waiting on Barack Obama. And I'll never forget that day, because we take that picture that you just saw. And people always ask me, what was I thinking in that picture? And I know vividly, I recall vividly what I was thinking at that moment. You know how you have a moment in time that you freeze sometimes. But I remember clearly what I was thinking. I was thinking that I was 19 miles away from where I had the audacity to dream with my eyes open in my kitchen. I was 19 miles away from where I believed that I could become a part of something larger than myself, that I could change the world. I was 300 yards away from where my father was shot, and the blood of my family literally ran through the soil of this great state. And although I was 19 miles away from Denmark and 300 yards away from where my father was shot, I had gone so far. My dreams in that big city of Denmark had taken me to the stage, standing with Kerry, Usher, Chris, and the 44th president of the United States. It's the concept of dreaming with your eyes open, and that picture is proof. So I talked about that in detail in the book, and then I talked about how I left after 8 years of serving in the General Assembly. You know, I think that everyone has a sunrise and everyone has a sunset, and it was my time to try a new challenge. So I ran for lieutenant governor. I was unsuccessful, but I gave it my all. And then after that race, I was a little wayward, trying to figure out what I was going to do, or what I was going to do next with my life. And then we all remember June 17th of 2015. And I'll never forget that day. I was actually in Charleston, South Carolina. And I was at a fundraiser for Hillary Clinton. And I was leaving, and I had Ike Williams with me. Ike is always with me. And I was leaving the venue, and I decided I was going to ride behind Steve Benjamin, because Steve, of course, had security. So I was trying to get back to Columbia as quickly as possible. And you know how you get off of Meeting Street and it merges onto I-26 from from Charleston. We merged, and then we saw more law enforcement than anyone had ever seen in their entire life. It was trucks and armored vehicles and everything. It was huge. It was so much stuff. And I didn't know what had happened. And so I went to the 24-hour news source, which is Twitter. And I found out that there was a shooting at Mother Emanuel AME Church. And I remember my friend Tyler Jones calling me, and Tyler saying that Clement made it to the hospital. You see, Clement and I were really close because our districts overlapped, because after I represented Bamberg, Barnwell, and Orangeburg, after 2010, I represented Bamberg, Barnwell, and Colleton. And so we represented Colleton County together. And we used to always talk. And, you know, Reverend Singleton will agree with this, but Clem went out the way that I would expect him to. they had this straggly white boy that they had never seen before. On a Wednesday night, come to their Bible study, and they opened the doors and they let him in, and Clem didn't sit him like he was some type of leper all the way on the other side of the church. Clem set him right by him. And they prayed with him and worshiped with him for a full full hour. And as they were saying their benediction with their heads bowed, Dylan Roof took out a 9mm and shot them all and shot Clem in the neck. He was the only one to live outside of that church and make it to the hospital where he subsequently died. But I just remember calling my dad and being in tears that night. Just unbelievable that that much hate still existed. And then my dad and I, we did this interview on Melissa Harris Perry's show on a Saturday morning. That's actually the interview right there. And I was just thinking, and I looked over at him and I said, my dad, he has his Voorhees College pin on. I said, my dad is 70 and I'm 30, but we're having too many of the same shared experiences. And then when we talk about being prepared for opportunity, it was a Monday after the shooting. So I got a phone call from another private number, and it was CNN. And they hired me off the street because you have to be prepared for absolutely anything. And it's so unique, that moment I got hired, because it allows me to be a voice for Clem and a voice for those 8 others who gave their lives, who, what Abraham Lincoln calls, paid the last full measure of devotion. And that picture I actually have on a vest. They made me wear a vest that you can't really see because of all the threats that were happening. And I got hired by CNN, and I remember sitting next to Sonny Hostin, who's on The View, at the funeral for Clem. And I don't know if y'all remember this, but Barack Obama was singing Amazing Grace. And now he was off key as all hell, but he was singing it. And at that one moment, I thought that this country was going to move forward. I thought it was going to change. And so it was, for me, it was a moment of hope, but it was fleeting. It was brief. And that's why even during these moments, I'm afraid we'll miss it. And so as I was navigating that time, every time I go on CNN, I just try to speak my truth. Not only speak my truth, but speak for Clem in a weird way. And in My Vanishing Country, I just talk about this entire journey. Now, the funny part about this picture with Barack Obama is that singing is that, anytime the AME ministers have to be your backup singers, you're not hitting their note. But he tried. And then I talk about in My Vanishing Country, as we wrap it up, I talk about growing up with so much anxiety and angst. Like many of you all are struggling with anxiety, I wanted to be able to write that have a beautiful wife and beautiful children, have a great job, but I too even struggle with issues of mental health and anxiety. And it's okay to talk to people. For far too long, Black men have only thought that you can, the only person you can talk to is your barber. And so I wanted people to understand that it's okay to go through issues. It's okay to talk to people. And so, I wrote My Vanishing Country, and it was relatively cathartic and therapeutic. I talked about my wife giving birth and almost dying in childbirth. She bled out and had to spend the first 36 hours of our kids' lives in ICU. She hemorrhaged and lost 7 units of blood. And then 2 months later, my little Sadie was diagnosed with a rare liver disease, and she had to have a liver transplant. She stayed on the waiting list for 93 days, the hardest 93 days of one's life, until finally last September 1st, she got her liver transplant. And so I just talk about all of these struggles and the common theme of being Black in America. And I wrote this book to tell our truth and to tell our story and to give people from our neck of the woods, a little sense of pride. But I will challenge you and tell you all this for everybody out there who's writing a book, understand that I never want a book to come out during the middle of a pandemic, but it did well. And My Vanishing Country, which is my story, but even more importantly, which is our story, is a New York Times bestseller. It was a bestseller and on the list for 3 weeks. It is in the running to get a Grammy nomination from the audio version, and it's coming out in 3 different languages. It's coming out in German, French, and Spanish beginning in January. And so the whole world, I mean, I'm going to Germany, I'm going to France, I'm going to Spain whenever the Rona lets us be great to talk about My Vanishing Country and to talk about Denmark, South Carolina. The whole world now is able to know our story because of the words that we put on paper. And so I'm extremely proud to be from Denmark. I'm extremely proud to be a son of the movement. I'm a proud son of Voorhees College, and I'm very proud of My Vanishing Country. And so with that, Dr. Mason and I, we're going to have some conversation. And I guess if people want to ask questions, if possible, we'll take those too.
Thank you, Bakari. I'm so moved by your story and the context for which you have shared it tremendously. And I so appreciate the transparency that you've shown, and you've mentioned it on the air a number of times about dealing with mental health issues and the importance for African Americans, especially, to embrace that. I too have suffered with, depression, and so it is real. And I applaud you for your embracing that. One of the things that I want to ask you, a picture that I just so absolutely love is this one. It looks like you're holding a little boy, as your dad holding you. Your dad is such a humble, and we've had him since he retired at Voorhees a number of times when this book came out. But I want to ask you, how have you embraced his pain, his legacy? Let me share this quick clip, and then I want you to just kind of share with me your thoughts.
Okay.
On February 8th, 1968, as the night fell and darkness covered this city, after protesting one of the last vestiges of discrimination, shining a light on one of Jim Crow's final hiding places, a group of students built bonfires and sang protest songs. And within moments along the embankments on the front of the campus, police positioned themselves along Highway 601. The state police then closed in on students with shotguns loaded with deadly double-aught buckshots. And for 8 seconds, 1001, 1002, students engulfed by fear,
I said, Bakari either gonna text me later and say, "Man, why did you show that?"
No, it's fine. No, that's from the year was 2006, and I was a newly elected, or 2007. It was February 2007. I was a newly elected for the South Carolina General Assembly, and they asked me to give the keynote speech. They also asked me to do the 50th. And I said I didn't want to. I don't like talking about the Orangeburg Massacre, the emotion, the pain. My father was in the audience. The pain of all of those, reliving that pain is just so difficult. But I write about it as the most important day of my life because I wanted the world to know that story. My father went to prison. Yes, my father was housed on death row. He was shot. There's so many people who still live with the scars of that day. But for me, the biggest trauma of that entire story is the fact that nobody knows this story. People know about Kent State, but nobody knows about Orangeburg. And so I try to share that story and tell that story as often as I can.
Yeah. Your days at Morehouse, and what that experience as a graduate of an HBCU, how did those Morehouse years shape you into, what you would become, of course, a tremendous leader. But talk about those years at Morehouse.
Yeah, man, that was the best years of my life. Atlanta, Georgia was our oyster. Like, we could do absolutely anything we wanted to do. We went I was talking to my roommate Jared about this. We were just reminiscing. We would go entire weeks without seeing white folk because we were just in the AUC. It was just, right. It was just, we just lived out. We were on Fair Street. I mean, in between the Strip and Morris Brown, Clark, Atlanta, ITC, Morehouse School of Medicine, and Spelman. We were all right there. We were all right there together. And thank you, Marianne, for those kind words. And you could get in any bar, any club with the college ID. I would tell people I lost my academic scholarship not once, but twice. Shout out to Dean Hudson for getting it back for me the second time.
Yeah.
But it was Morehouse uniquely, and I hope that the administration at Voorhees takes this lesson. They would always tell us that they placed a crown above our head for us to grow into. It was a culture of leadership. It was a culture of activism. It was an awesome experience because you come from the legacy of people like Julian Bond, right? You come from the legacy of Spike Lee and Edwin Moses, David Satcher. It's just an amazing story. And I tell people all the time that one of the unique things that I learned about in Denmark is that I'm not special. I'm not atypical. There are a lot of kids who I grew up with who are smarter than I am, who are more talented than I am, but simply didn't have the blessings that I did. And so my job, and I take that seriously. My job is to help come home and create those blessings for others and those opportunities for others. I don't know anybody who wants a handout. I ain't met nobody who wants a handout. I know people who just want opportunity. They want a hand up, right? And at Morehouse, it just helped cultivate this air of leadership that you wanted to go out and change the world, man. And that's what I'm trying to do. I just need more help. So I'm asking everybody out there who's listening to, put your pants on this morning and join me in this journey to come out and change the world.
You were a very key voice after George Floyd died. And many of us saw you, we followed you, and we also felt your pain and emotion because it was our pain as well. Where are we right now, Bakari? And I mean, I know that may be, a redundant question, but in your eyesight, after George Floyd died, we had massive protests all across the country. It went through that cycle and now it has died. Now we're voting. Can you just kind of paint the picture as to where we are right now in your eyes?
I mean, that's a tough question for me. Yep, because this is a movement, and people want it to be a moment, but this is a movement. So I'm always trust but verify to see where we are this time next year.
Yeah.
I will tell you this though: being Black in this country is a perpetual state of grieving, because whether or not it's Ahmaud or Breonna, whether or not it's George Floyd, it's a tough moment. I was so conflicted, and I'll share this with you. I was conflicted because, you had that picture of my daughter, my 15-year-old, who was protesting, and she had her Black Lives Matter sign. And coming from our family, you're supposed to protest now. I was so proud that they were able to go out and protest and do those things, but I was heartbroken because of the fact that my daughter has to go out at 15 years old. Why can't she be like Barron Trump and just be 15? Why does she have to go out and have to reaffirm her humanity on a sign? That means that we have so much work left to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that something happened in this country during the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that the knee was on the neck of George Floyd, because people just aren't used to seeing that type of inhumanity. Right. I mean, we've been seeing it since Emmett Till and before, but white folk needed their eyes to be opened. And I think maybe that opened their eyes. Mm-hmm. I can't evaluate it today. One, I'm so focused on getting people to the polls. And two, I just think we need more time to let it cook a little bit longer. Let it, as Country Wayne, the comedian, says, we got to let that settle in our spirit for a little while longer.
A couple of nights ago, we had the opportunity to have an intimate Zoom with Killer Mike. It was just the men of Voorhees, faculty and staff as a part of the Men of Color Initiative. And of course, Killer Mike dropped some pearls.
I know he did.
And not necessarily in the King's English. He used the great vernacular of the Black community so we all could relate to it. And we loved every single minute of it. But one of the questions that was asked of him and I ask of you is there are still some, some students, African-American, men and women who don't see it necessary to vote. What would you say?
Yeah, we have to do a better job of giving people a reason to vote. Mm-hmm. Young people, it don't work to say my daddy almost died so you can go out and vote. They'd be like, all right.
They're not feeling that, huh?
Yeah, I'm sorry for your family. Thank you. But, what's in it for me? And I think that's a fair question. Yeah. People always push back at Black folk when they ask, what's in it for me? Like, give me a reason to show up. Every other group, evangelicals do it. Pro-life do it. Gun owners do it. Why not Black folk? Yeah. And so I think that, having a Black agenda like Joe Biden has, having an equity agenda like he does, having a Black vice president who's going to oversee coronavirus task force, which from a public health perspective has devastated our communities, and from an economic perspective has devastated us even more, bringing that back, having a Black Supreme Court justice are reasons to vote. Everybody knows who Donald Trump is. I mean, ain't nobody really undecided. I mean, the question is, why should I go vote? So I voted October 5th, the first day you could vote. I was over in Bamberg. Yeah, I went to visit a client at the jail and walked on over there and voted. It was a line too. It took me about 30 minutes to vote in Bamberg, which that's not normal, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much energy in the streets. And so Killer Mike, another great Morehouse man, probably articulates something similar. And this is the most important election of our lifetimes. We say that probably too often, but this truly is. And this will determine the trajectory and the direction of our country. And I can simply tell you that my twins don't deserve to grow up in a country that's like this.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Dr. Evans sends his regards and great admiration to you. And we want to ask Mrs. Charlene Johnson, who is our Vice President of Student Services, to come and to share remarks with you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Attorney Sellers and the Voorhees family. I've said it before, I'm going to continue to say it. Dr. Mason and the Lyceum committee, you're still bringing us outstanding folk who are giving us great messages. And I have a personal story with Attorney Sellers. The first time I heard you speak was at South Carolina State when I was working there, and you were at the Orangeburg Massacre. And you were so wholesome and so sincere until when I got home, and it was at night. My daughter, who was in middle school or junior high at the time, Taylor Johnson, I ran home. I think you know Taylor. I ran home. I knocked on her door. I'm like, Taylor, I just found your husband. And she's in junior high school. I mean, you were just that dynamic, and you continue to be. Certainly, you are a son of Denmark, and you have one of the great minds of the country. And I, too, watch you whenever I can. So the history of Denmark, I was listening with all that Dr. Evans continues to give me to do. I put it all aside, and I was listening so intensely about what you said. And I felt, I'm from Allendale, South Carolina, so I could feel some of the things that you were talking about. And I'm not sure if we purchased books, but if not, I'm certainly going out and get mine. And as soon as COVID is over, I'd certainly like for you to autograph it. I am a #1 fan of yours. And again, congratulations to your wife. She got to you before my daughter could grow up enough. So again,
thank you. And I know Dr. Evans is giving you a whole lot to do. So thank you for taking a little bit of time. And I promise everyone that when we're able to be together, as an extrovert, this is hard for me because I'm a hugger. I want to hug and dap up and everything, but I'll be down to sign as many books as possible. I sign until my hands get sore. So thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate that. And we have 100 copies of your book on its way. And to our students, if you are interested in a copy, complimentary copy, contact us at the library, and our wonderful staff, Ms. Timms and Mr. Fogel, will mail you a book, and the very same to our faculty and staff. If you're interested in a copy, contact the library, and we'll make sure of that as well. Ms. Johnson, thank you so much for your leadership of the Lyceum Committee. We thank you, Reverend Singleton, Mr. Sumner, and members of the Lyceum Committee. Dr. Evans, always for your support, and Dr. Hopkins and your cabinet, and to you, Voorhees College students, staff, and faculty, we appreciate your tuning in. Share this video. They need to hear from one of the greatest voices of this time and generation, a son of Denmark, Bakari Sellers, and we thank God for you and pray God's continued blessings on you. And tell that old Jared Lowholt I said hello. Your roommate and all. This concludes our Lyceum, and we're going to let Attorney Bakari Sellers have the last word on this. You all take care and God bless.
I am unashamed to ask for your prayers. I'm very, very proud to be from Denmark. I'm very, very proud to love Voorhees College. For all the alums, take some time today. Give $5 or $10 to this college that we love so that it can continue to grow. Share the message and the story about Voorhees with young people in those communities so that students come to Voorhees College. To all the faculty, staff, and administrators, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. I know you're working double time from a distance. To all the students, know we can change the world. And to Denmark, just know that our better days are ahead. And I am always going to be someone who wears our city's flag proudly. I love you all. And I would not be anything without the community that poured so much. So thank you and God bless you all.
All right. Would you hang tight for just 1 minute after the show? Okay. Just.
I remember when I was in 5th grade, my dad came and got me out of school, and we took a picture over here, right here. It was I can't remember the year. A celebration that we were, but we were standing right beside Macy O'Nance. Remember that? And I had my Felton uniform on because I grew up on this campus, so I'm a junior Bulldog. So I went to Felton. I remember a lot, and so just having that experience and growing up on this campus, playing in the Felton Laboratory band. I was like a junior bongo brother.